Hi everyone, welcome to Make Moments Matter, a music education podcast, where I share lesson ideas, songs, games, and inspiring things for your elementary music classroom. My name is David Rao, and I am the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. This episode of the podcast is a replay containing the audio version of a Musical Mondays live video. If you're not familiar with Musical Mondays, every Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I go live on Facebook and Instagram to share about the lessons that I'm using in class with my students. I give a recap of my kindergarten through 5th grade lessons, and then do a deep dive about one grade level and share the books, instruments, songs, and process that I use to teach the lesson to kids. This podcast episode contains all the audio from the Musical Mondays video, but if you'd like to see a replay of the video itself, you can find a link to the archived video on YouTube when you click the link in the notes for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Here's the show. Hey everyone, my name is David Rao, and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find my ideas on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter. So tonight, I'm excited because I'm going to be sharing a little bit some of my lessons from this week. I'm going to be talking specifically about using rhythm reading in non-pitched instruments and just a way to sort of elongate and draw out some of those lessons. I'm going to talk specifically about how I'm doing it currently with my third graders, but I think it's something that could be adapted for younger or older depending on what sort of content you want to include. So that's coming up in just a second. If you hear about a resource, a book, a video, something in this video, or any of my Musical Monday videos that you're interested in, there's a whole page on my blog dedicated to all of the stuff that I talk about. Just click on my blog in the video tab, and there should be a drop down for this current school year, and you can find all the info there. Or if you're watching, listening, there's probably at the bottom of the caption for this video a direct link if you're interested. You can also join, there's a Facebook group called Every Moment Matters, music education community. You can ask questions, see other people's questions, comment, make friends. It's a great place to learn together, so come and join us if you're on Facebook. Okay, a couple quick housekeeping things. If you're interested in taking ORF Level 1, I am a part of a great ORF Level course in Orlando. It's the Central Florida ORF chapter course. I'm teaching Level 1 pedagogy, and Kelly Wisenand and Michael Vasquez are teaching recorder and movement for Level 1. If you're interested in taking Level 1, come join us in Orlando. It's going to be so much fun. You can go to Disney on the weekend or whatever, or go see rocket launches and stuff. It's very exciting. Come join us. So that's this summer. If you're interested, I have a link on the links page to where you can sign up if you're interested in ORF Level 1. Okay, let's see. Another thing. There's a gift card giveaway going on right now on my Facebook page. I put a link to that in the links page because there's going to be a sale on TPT tomorrow and Wednesday, and you can win a $10 gift card from me, and then some of my other friends are also doing gift cards, and they're linked there on that thing, and you get a chance to win a gift card from any of us. All of us. I don't know. Multiples. I don't know. It's enter them all. So anyway, go check it out. That's a thing you can do. And then tomorrow there's a sale, and Wednesday there's a sale. So I've linked that as well. Okay, so let's talk about some lessons and things you can do. And I'm really sorry that last week my sound cut out, and then think the week before the video randomly shut off for one thing, and I'm gonna have some technical difficulties. So if you are wherever you're sitting, watching, listening to this, if the sound cuts out, if something isn't working, please leave a comment hey, can't hear you, because I do check the comments, and that will definitely help me. Okay, so my third graders just got done with a concert cycle. They were just preparing for our family folk dance night, which we did just a couple weeks ago. And so now we're sort of picking up, where did we leave off? What do we need to do next? Coming up in third grade, they're going to be doing 16th notes. So one of the things I wanted to do was to bring in some non-pitch instruments, because we haven't played those in a while, because again, we were focusing mostly on folk dancing. I wanted to do some rhythm readings for the note values and rest that they already know and should have a pretty good understanding of, but I also wanted to be able to incorporate some improvisation and what else can you do with this? And I wanted them to have some movement around the room. So like that's a lot of things to try and include in one lesson, but I got a lot of that, and so I wanted to share sort of how I did that and what you could maybe do if you wanted. Again, you could level this for younger or older depending on the content you want to include or the rhythmic, the note values. It's totally up to you. But basically my third graders came in, we did sort of an opening activity, and then this was sort of the bigger, bulkier part of the lesson. I only have 30 minutes with kids, so it wasn't that long. But basically up on the screen I put this, and I'm going to, this always works so well when I want to show a screen. See? There we go. It did not work. Hold on, let me see if I can make this work. Yeah, see, every time I want to make this work, it doesn't want to work for me. So let me try this again. Sorry, Facebook. I know. I just said if you can't see something, like, let me know. Ooh, there we go. Okay, sorry. All right, so Facebook, I think you can see that now. Instagram, sorry, I'm going to switch you over. Okay, so this is basically the screen that I show kids. It's just 3 lines of rhythms, right? I use the Takadimi system when I speak rhythmic values. It's totally up to you with what you say at your school, but if you hear me say tadi instead of tt or dude or tate or whatever it is you say at your school, just know I'm just reading it the way I read it. Okay, so if I were reading the top line in Takadimi, I would say ta, ta-di, ta-di, ta, ta-di, ta, ta-di, ta. If you were doing a Kodai sort of a way, or I mean, there are a lot of different ways you might say ta, ti, 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 ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, ta. But again, we could do a whole video on what rhythm syllable to choose. I, in fact, did a whole blog post about that. If you're interested, I will put that on links page. But so basically with my kids, I was like, okay, just read the top line. Here we go. And so we'd read ta, ta-di, ta-di, ta, ta-di, ta, ta-di, ta. Okay, now add a clap. Ta, ta-di, ta-di, ta, ta-di, ta, ta-di, ta. They're super used to that. Maybe I would say change the clap to a pat. Okay, just to get them like adding something sort of rhythmic with that line. Great, look at the second line. Okay, let's read it. And at my school, when we read half notes, we say ta, ta-di, ta. There's some people say tu, ta-di, ta. It's just, again, your preference, how you do it. I'll just tell you the way I say it. So at my school, we say ta, ta-di, ta, ta-di, ta, ta. Okay, just quick pause, sidebar to think about and talk about what do you say for a rest. Some people say shh for like a quarter rest. Some people say rest for a quarter rest. I don't say any of that because rest is silence, right? So like if I'm teaching kids to go like ta-di, ta, shh, ta, shh is still a sound. In fact, it's a loud sound a lot of times. So as long as I've been doing this, and this is something I borrowed from my cooperating teacher back when I was student teaching, you can still say ta. It's still the value of a ta. It's a ta rest. It's still a quarter note. But instead of saying ta, you can go, you say it, just don't let the sound out of your mouth. My cooperating teacher when I was student teaching was like, you can even shout it just as long as you don't say it out loud. So like ta-di, ta, ta. And kids love that, but I will tell you that kids will start doing like pretending to shout as loud as possible for more than one beat. So like maybe don't do that or just think about that because they will then inflate the note value. It'll go too long. Anyway, so with that line, let me switch back. With that line, that second line, there's a half note. Ta, ta-di, ta, ta-di, ta, quarter rest, ta. Right, so we would just say ta, that second measure would be ta-di, ta, ta. And then the bottom row has a half rest in it, and that's a great review for them because that's something that came up for them in second grade, and so we would read that. Ta-di, ta, ta-di, ta-di, ta, ta. Easy peasy. The second line, though, gets interesting when I say, can you clap it? So then they get into how do you clap a half note? And, okay, again, I'll just show you what I do at my school. So when we're speaking it and clapping it, we say ta, we clap our hand, and then we do like a little wave. Ta, so it's like our hand moving through the air to show that duration of 2 beats. It's not like ta, which really would probably be better because it's giving sound for those two beats. But again, it was just ta. And so kids have a little conundrum if I say, okay, you can add a clap while you speak it. They can do that. But if I say now only clap, well then the half note doesn't, if you're not looking, if you're not seeing that visual like swipe of the hand, it sounds like a quarter note quarter rest. So they're like, how do you do that? So then we talk about, you like ta, you could like scrape or swipe or whatever you want to do to try and add some sound, ta, ta-dee, ta. But you can't do something like ta. I mean, it's sort of tricky. Can you do something without making it sound like 16th notes or 32nd notes or whatever? Can you do something that is just like a ta, ta-dee, ta? So that it throws sort of a wrench into their, how do you clap this? And that is going to come back later on purpose. So we talk about it, we explore a couple things, and then we move on. And then the next question is, well, how do you clap a half rest? And it's the same sort of idea of like, you can show duration with movement of your hand or something, but you can't make a sound. There's going to be those two beats of silence. But for my kids, I still have them wave their hand because I find that if they don't do something like that, they'll come in too early. So to feel that duration, I let them still move their hand as if they're doing a half note, but then they just don't make sound, if that makes sense. The action gives them something to like sort of serve as a placeholder for those beats of rest. Otherwise, inevitably, they'll cut the rest short and come in too early because they're just excited to move on. So this all starts with like just reading these 3 lines up on the board. Super simple. And then one of the things that I do is I take, I don't have any handy, of course, because I want them. I take some letters and I project this up on my whiteboard and I write, on the top line I write A, on the second line I write B, on the third line I write C. Just so kids, when they see it, they see line A, line B, line C. So when we do that, they've read through each line, they're familiar with each line, and then I say, this is really great. We clapped it, we tried to pad it. I was like, let's add some instruments. And so I say, here are the instruments we're going to use today. And this is sort of what I pull out. And I made these decisions. You can make decisions about instruments that you want based on your inventory, but the reason I chose these was I knew I was going to divide my classes into 4 groups. And that would mean I'd need to have 4 to 6 instruments at least to make all my rotations work. So I chose things that like I knew I had enough of and things that would give some little contrast. So things that I chose to use, one group had wood blocks, okay? And I prep kids about how you might use a wood block. One group had egg shakers. One group had claves, and one group had these drum shaker things. You've maybe seen me talk about these before. These are from Luminote, and they're these like funny little, it's like a shaker, but then also it has a little membrane on both sides. So it's sort of fun because you can shake it. If you put a finger down, it sounds different. Put down 2 fingers, sounds very different. You can pat. I like it. It's a fun little weird instrument. I don't know. I have enough that I have like 4 to 6 or something. So I had enough to do it. But the reason I did this was I wanted 2 instruments that would not give, you're not able to use for a sustained 2 beat, like for a half note, and things that you could. Now the egg shakers are not perfect, and the shakers are not perfect because you have to go like ta, right? Like you have to shake it to give those 2 beats, but it's something. I could have gone with something like finger cymbals, and I could have gone with something like a triangle or something like that. But that would, if you just play it, it rings for a long, long time, not necessarily just 2 beats. And so this really sort of goes longer, so then kids would have to play and then dampen. So the thing I like about like an egg shaker is they have to sustain that 2 beats. They have to keep it going. It's not like they just like hit it and let it go. Like they actually have to let it play on its own. So one of the things that has come up when I'm talking through this with the kids is like some kids I'll say like, well, you can't really clap a half note Can you sing a half note? They're like, yes, we can sing because we can hold that sound out. Great. Can my piano play a half note? Yep, it sure can. What if it's an organ mode? Yes, it sure can. What if I play and I pull out, examples? What if I pull out like tone blocks? No, that doesn't give me 2 seconds. What if I pull out finger cymbals? Yeah, longer than 2 seconds. I had one kid who's like, I will time you on my watch. Like it was like, can sustain for as long. What about sleigh bells? Sure, you can make it work. But basically I had kids come up, and I had like one group of kids got claves, one group of kids got wood blocks, one group of kids got egg shakers, and one got these drum shakers. And then we went back through and we played some of these lines. So let's go and look at those again. So like if you're going to play... Ooh, let me see if I can flip the camera around. Okay, so like if you're going to play line 1 on a wood block, that's really easy. Ta, ta-dee, ta-dee, ta, ta-dee, ta, ta-dee, ta. Easy peasy. You can also do it on egg shaker. Ta, ta-dee, ta-dee, ta, ta-dee, ta, ta-dee, ta. It's when you get to that second line that things become really tricky. And we've had some really fun conversations because kids would say like, okay, like on claves, you can't play the half note. Ta, ta-dee, ta, ta-dee, ta, ta. Like the half note, you can't really play it and sustain, so it doesn't really sound like a half note. It sounds like a quarter note and quarter rest. With like an egg shake, you can. Ta, ta-dee, ta, ta-dee, ta. But what we did talk about was with the quarter rest and with the half rest, if you have an instrument like an egg shaker, if you move it at all, it is going to make a sound, right? So like in some ways, those instruments that shake, let me turn this back to give that example. In some ways, those instruments that like shake and move, they're fun, they're nice for like the half note, right? But then if you're trying to have a rest, if you like move it, it's making sound, so you have to be very careful. So it was fun for kids because some kids are like, haha, I have the egg shaker. This is superior because it can play the half note. And I was like, but then also you have to be careful because during a rest, it still is making sound if you're moving. So you have to be very still. Whereas the kid with the woodblock is like, like dancing around. He's like, I'm not making any sound. So it was just like fun to have those conversations about like, how does it work? If you're going to play, can you play? And then of course, then we rotate. So like, my classes are broken up into 4 groups, so then like the front line goes to the back, and then everybody moves up or whatever, however you want to do the rotation. But I try and get every kid on an instrument that can sustain and an instrument that cannot, so that they get both experiences. And because I chose these things like a woodblock and claves, and then an egg shaker, a drum shaker, it's like if they don't get to one of the 4, okay, but they're going to get on a wood instrument and they're going to get on a shaking instrument. So like sort of similar experiences. Then to like take this further, another thing I would do is like I said, like play line A, play line C, play line B. Well then, because I had already labeled them A, B, C, then I was like, oh great, play this pattern. And I showed a thing that said A, B, A, B. So they'd go through and play the A line, play the B line, play the A line, play the B line. And I'd say like, okay, maybe just shakers this time, just woods this time, or whatever. So there's like infinite variety. And if you go through with like different combinations of the lines, there's so many things you can do to like extend this further if you want. Of course, kids will want to rotate. You could always change out the instruments. You could have a different variety of instruments. You could change, if you wanted to, you could change the 3 lines of rhythm and give them different rhythms to work on. But I find that like with this just like very basic 3 lines, it gives me a lot of possibilities to work with, even without like, oh, there are 85 pages of rhythms. Like we're using the same rhythms, but they're playing them on different instruments. They're playing them in different ways. Sometimes I'm saying say the words. Sometimes I'm saying don't say the words, only play. I mean, there's like so much that you can get out of this without putting in like, I sat there for an hour making all these different slides. You don't need to. Just take these slides and like use it, rework it in different ways. The other thing that's cool is like if you say to kids like you have line A, line B, line C, now play A, B, A, C, now play C, C, A, A, now play A, B, 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 A, or whatever. You're showing them like you can take this little material and reuse it and put it in a different pattern, put it in a different form, and reuse it in lots of different ways, and you don't have to recreate the wheel every time. And they become very comfortable with those patterns, and then they're able to sort of start improvising. So like a next step also could be create your own line D. And that would be 2 measures, right, of whatever. And they could create it with a partner. They could create it on their own and have their own little bit that they could insert as they wanted, or just freely improvise for 2 measures, so 8 beats worth of rhythm. That's like another next step that you could do if you wanted to. So again, very simple, but something that's like, because I wanted to review half notes and half rests, I wanted to review playing non-pitched instruments. This hit a lot of those objectives all at once. A couple other things that was really fun was that when we did wood blocks, like anytime we play wood blocks, I always have kids who set the wood block on the floor and try and smack it. And I am super not a fan of that because that ends up in a lot of broken mallets, and it doesn't sound as good, and then it becomes like a hammer. So, I always say, like, at each of these instruments you have to hold in your hand. Okay, so then hold in one hand, play with the other. And then they start discovering, you play in different places. I don't tell them where to play. Like, of course, in my head, I'm like, that would be great if you could play in this one specific spot. But I let them sort of discover how to play best on their own, because then they feel more ownership about, oh, this sounds good. Why does it sound good? Well, it's a little louder, a little more resonant or whatever. And they can decide that based on their experience exploring the instrument. That's fun for woodblock. Like, who says woodblock is like the most fun? But this actually is a fun activity for woodblock. It's also fun if you give them finger cymbals, because some kids really struggle with that because they're like, how do I, to let them dangle and ring, and then trying to dampen them. Like, the kids like that challenge. They really enjoy that. So that's a fun thing too. The other thing would be claves. So I've ordered some of these cool things called clave companions. They're on back order. But they basically just hold your clave so that it sounds really great all the time. Because kids will naturally like hold them like rhythm sticks and click them. And that sounds okay. But if you want to have this talk with kids and like get a really cool sound out of it, I was taught by a percussionist, like, you make your hand look sort of like a hot dog bun, and here's the hot dog, but instead of the hot dog going down in the bun, it just sits on the very, very top. Like, you haven't opened the hot dog bun enough that it can't go all the way down into like the bun, so it's like sort of sitting on top. So you make sort of a little cradle in your hand, and then you set the clave on top. So then instead of sounding like this, then you get a much nicer sound. Now, these cool things called clave companions do all that work for you, but the ones that I ordered in like September are still on back order. So they're coming, but they're not here yet. So anyway, the cool thing is that, like, if you teach kids to do this, they can hear the difference. Ooh, and this one sounds way cooler. And it presents a challenge to them. Can they do this? So it's fun to be able to like have a little bit of technique moment while you're doing just like basic rhythms, and give them a few challenges. That's why it's also nice to like not have like 35 different instruments out and just have like 4, because then kids can work with one another. You can work them through slowly, and then they can have a little bit more mastery of that instrument before they move on, and they're better at it before they move on. Okay, so like I said, I chose for my 4 groups woodblock, claves. I had a bunch of those, egg shaker, and the drum shaker, and I'll try and find a link and put a link to this in case you're interested. But you, like I said, you can use whatever you want. If you want to use a more complex rhythm than what I showed, you totally can. But the cool thing about this for me then is then later in a few weeks, once we have like we've added 16th notes, well then I can add that in, and when I add in 16th notes, then we can have a whole nother discussion about like, well, is this instrument suited for playing 16th notes, and why? And sometimes in those cases, like the finger cymbals, they're good for long sustaining notes, but they're not so good for 16th notes. And why? Because you have to manipulate them differently. And so it's like fun to have this conversation. But if you have it now about these simple rhythms, then when you add another rhythm value for like 16th note or whatever it is you're going to do next, then you can like, remember we talked about this already, it's sort of preloaded in their brain, and then you can have that conversation and it can grow and encompass more later. Okay, like I said, this is 3rd grade for me right now, but it could be 2nd grade, it could be 1st, you'd have different conversations if you did. It could be 4th or 5th, it depends on where you want to take it and what content you want to include, but you have a lot of options. Okay, cool. Well, if you have any other thoughts about like how this might work for you, or you've done something similar, or you think like, oh, that's interesting, I have a question, please leave those comments and questions in the comment section. I always come back and check them whenever I can to try and check in. Also, remember there's a gift card giveaway right now on my Facebook page if you want to go enter that giveaway. It's for the TPT sale that starts tomorrow and runs through Wednesday. And come and join us this summer in Orlando for ORF Level 1. I hope you'll come and join us. It's going to be a super great time. There are still spots available for Level 1 if you want to come and join us. And the link on my links page will give you take you to the place where you can learn all the information, or you can message me and ask me about it if you're interested. Okay, that's all for tonight, everyone. Thanks so much for coming along. I'll see you next week. Have a great night. Bye, Facebook. Have a great night. Thanks, y'all.